up. You're good. You
I'm still getting the hang of this Zoom thing.
we're ready when you are.
All right. Well, good morning. I hope everybody is doing well, and I hope I did not get you up under the anticipation of any big announcement or anything. I absolutely have no agenda. Just thought now that the fall semester was behind us and we're in the throes of our spring semester and what will be a very busy spring season, that how to give you guys a little bit of an update and an opportunity to ask me some questions. So one of the things I wanted to start with, I'll call it my why. Back in July, late July, when there was a lot of scrutiny around whether or not we should play a fall sports season or an athletic season in general, I got really frustrated with the narrative that was out there about why we were playing a season, or at least attempting to play a season. And so in my frustration, I wrote an open letter that I ended up not sending out, but I think it was very therapeutic for me. And I wanted to take some excerpts from that and read now. So this starts somewhat in the middle. I've had the privilege during my 10 plus years as a director of athletics to live out my passion at the FCS level at Coastal Carolina University, the Group of 5 level at the University of Houston, and now the Autonomy 5 level at the University of Arkansas. The resources available to invest in the experience and overall development of the student athletes has changed dramatically at each stop, as has my personal compensation. But what has never changed is my why. This why is the same reason I'm pushing daily within our department, conference, and nationally for Division I athletics to be played this fall. That why is our student athletes. Right now at the University of Arkansas, we have 325 student athletes on campus representing 19 different sports who have returned voluntarily to work on their passion. They came back to do what they love, to lift weights, run, shoot, pass, hit, dribble, pitch, serve, volley, drive, dive, and swim. They came back to enjoy the camaraderie of being surrounded by their fellow teammates during one of the most special times of their lives. Student athletes are making incredible sacrifices to provide themselves the best opportunity to have a season. As such, I will continue to work tirelessly to find a way that includes the safety, health, and well-being of our student athletes, staff, and fans to play college athletics this year at the University of Arkansas. Sure, there are financial ramifications to such decisions that will play an integral role in our ability to continue to support our student athletes at the level we have been able to in the past. However, this season, as is the case for every season, my why continues to be the same: our incredible student athletes. And I just want to tip my hat to our student athletes as we're about halfway through this athletic season. To date, since June the 1st, yesterday, we just went over 18,000 COVID tests among our student athlete, coaches, and support staff population. We've got a positivity rate below 1.2%. Currently, among our 12 sports that are competing, we have 0 positive cases of COVID among those 12 sports. We've had the opportunity to compete in 91 events to date, and we've competed successfully in 90 of those 91 events. Our bowl game in Texas being the only event to date that has been canceled. We were able to make up the Tulsa men's basketball game, and we just rescheduled the Vanderbilt women's basketball game to get to that 90 of 91%. And not only have we competed, we've competed successfully both on and off the field. This fall semester, our student athletes had a fall term GPA of 3.22, and we had 17 of our 19 sports programs that had an average GPA of 3.0 or better. During 2020, we had 104 student athletes that graduated or earned their degree from the University of Arkansas. As all of you know, we won 3 SEC championships. We have 8 teams that were been ranked in the top 15 or above, and 12 in the top 25. And we've been able to have fans at all of our events successfully, except for indoor track and field events. And the other residual effect of having this is each of you, the members of the media, get to cover those events. Our ushers, our ticket takers, our concession workers, get to work those events. And so my why is our student athletes, but by having competitive athletic competition this fall and into this spring is why we're doing what we're doing, because it benefits so many people across our university community, across our state, and really nationally. Can you imagine? I remember back to what March, April, and May were like without college athletics, and I don't ever want to go through that again. So with that, I'm going to stop right there, Kyle, and just open it up for questions on any topic. There's nothing that's not on the table. I may not answer your question, but you can ask it.
Bob, you want to lead us off?
Sure. Hey, Hunter, how you doing? Thanks for doing.
Hey, Bob.
I had a couple basketball questions. One, speaking of postponements and whatnot, Vandy, from what you know or what you've been communicated with, is the basketball game going to be played Saturday? And do you communicate with Vandy folks, or does that go through the SEC, or how does that work?
There's a combination of the two. The basketball sport administrators, for us, is Clayton and Hamilton, will be in communication with their basketball sport administrator as well as the league office. And as of last night, I haven't gotten an update this morning, but that game was still on, Bob.
Okay. And then I know you were at the game last night. I assume you're probably at all of them. What was going through your mind when it's, Arkansas is struggling down 19? I remember thinking, man, I hope Eric, makes it through this game because he's so emotional. What was going through your mind, and then what do you think about the comeback, and what do you think about the job Eric's doing in his second season?
I think he's doing a great job, Bob, and I'll answer your first question. Obviously, in the first half, after watching the majority of the LSU game and the Alabama game, our offense has been struggling, and I think it's definitively a confidence problem. And I think with Justin out, you saw teams really cheat out on our three-point shooters, and we were not able to finish at the basket. But really what turned the corner for us is that our one returning player with any significant minutes from last year, Desi Shields, had a heck of a game, especially in the second half for us last night. And we need Desi to be that glue that holds us together, and that's a lot of pressure on him. I mean, look at our players that had significant minutes last year. Mason Jones is in the NBA. Isaiah Joe's in the NBA. Jimmy Witt's in the G League. Adriel Bailey's playing overseas. And we've got 4 freshmen that are learning as they go. We've got some transfers. And we've done that. We've got a virtually new team during COVID where we haven't been able to do the normal bonding thing. So I think the job Eric has done, I think he spoiled us at the beginning of the season when you think about how many new players we had by getting off to the start. And then when you get into SEC competition, it steps up a little bit. And I think you see a team like Alabama has 2 or 3 senior leaders in that starting lineup that are pulling along the freshmen and sophomores. And so we needed some confidence last night in the second half, and we got it. And I hope that continues this Saturday in Nashville, Bob.
Nate?
Yeah, Hunter, as far as you had to replace because of what you inherited and then the COVID, you had to get early retirement from about decades of institutional knowledge on the support staff. How's it gone replacing that so far?
Well, we're never going to be able to replace that institutional knowledge, Nathan. You're referring to the 16 staff members that had close to 500 years of service to our department. You just can't replace that. We miss those people dearly around our department, their personality and their knowledge. But, we've been able to forge ahead, and people have stepped up and covered those duties that were left behind.
Also, as far as what is it financial that you've inherited, and the SEC has always been a keep up with the Jones League with building. Does that change now with COVID? Will there be kind of less ambitious plans, you think, throughout the league?
I don't see there being less ambitious plans within the SEC. I mean, this year has been a struggle for most of us financially, but you can see what the baseball facility, the JB and John L. Hunt Family Baseball Development Center is on schedule and will open. Part of that will open at the start of baseball season. The other part will open during baseball season. Our Frank O'Mara Track and Field High Performance Center will open in April, and a major renovation to the Tyson Indoor just was debuted this past weekend. And so I don't think the ambitious nature of the SEC will go away because of COVID.
Tom?
Hey, Hunter, that funnels right into what I wanted to ask you. The numbers from the fall season, particularly football, how do they look for you in terms of overall, expenses and revenues and where you're headed?
Sure, Tom. I think the last time we gathered together and we talked about our budget, we were anticipating a deficit somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 to $25 million on the revenue side. That's probably closer to $25 to $30 million after we've closed out football season. We're roughly halfway through basketball season, and we kind of feel like we know what we're going to be able to do with baseball season. So we've had to make a few adjustments to our budget on the expense side because of those anticipated revenue shortfalls growing, but we feel like we're in really good shape still, all things considered.
And also, you guys are advertising for a senior AD for name, image, and likeness stuff. And I wanted to ask you about the position and spending that kind of money right now when you're in that kind of financial situation.
Sure. I mean, the name, image, and likeness train is coming down the track quickly, even though that was tabled at last week's NCAA meetings. There's still state legislation in many states across our country. We believe there'll be federal legislation that's coming. Many schools have invested in a third-party company to manage that for them. I thought it was a better resource for our student athletes to have someone internal that could help them manage the launch of the name, image, and likeness and their brand building. And so that's why we're making that investment right now, Tom.
Trey Biddy?
You're going to love this crystal ball question, but if you can, after this spring semester, looking ahead to, I guess, August, fall 2021, what are your hopes? What do you think things could be like as far as attendance for fans and things like that? Crystal ball.
Yeah, Trey, I mean, we're going to launch our football season ticket campaign late February, early March, with the anticipation of having full capacity at Razorback Stadium. We're going to sell it that way. We'll release our football schedule here through the SEC office in the next week to 10 days. But we're anticipating things returning to some sense of normalcy. And that's my crystal ball outlook of what I think right now.
Thank you there.
One question today?
Yeah, sorry, my computer skipped. Hunter, in terms of the coaching turnover situation with football, how do you think Sam Pittman handled, some of his coaches being called away for interviews and just how he handled all that in the background?
I think he's done a great job managing that. I mean, obviously, Barry Odom was a hot commodity after how our defense played for the majority of the season, and having been a former head coach, it was important for Coach Pittman that we retained Coach Odom. We were able to do that. I think we filled our void that was created at our wide receiver spot with Justin Stepp leaving to South Carolina. That was really for him to have the opportunity to return home. Kenny Guyton will fill that really, really well for us. And so I think Sam has managed people coming after his staff very, very well.
Gotti?
Yeah, Hunter, I guess you just mentioned Barry Odom, but I guess just how important was it, just for the direction of the football program to keep Barry on board?
It was very important. Barry has that experience as sitting in that head coaching chair in the Southeastern Conference that has been invaluable to Coach Pittman throughout this year and will be invaluable moving forward. Our defensive the student athletes on the defensive side of the ball love him. He obviously created schemes that put us in a position to have some success throughout the season. And he's an important piece to our puzzle. And just continuity in general among your coaching staff is very, very important. And to be able to retain both of your, or really all three of our coordinators, how Sam has that set up with Coach Briles and Coach Fountain and Coach Odom was very, very important.
Let me know if you've got more questions in the chat. Trey Schapp?
Hey, Hunter, I know it's been a struggle for all athletic directors across the country, but for you at Arkansas, what has kept you up at night as you contemplate tough decisions?
COVID test results, Trey. quite honestly. I mean, that's just the ability to continue to compete in games. I mean, there was a significant value anytime we would have lost an SEC football game on that from a television revenue standpoint. And we're already hemorrhaging a great deal of revenue right now. We didn't want to lose more revenue. It's just, how do we, we have not laid any of our staff members off. We did have the early retirement. Everybody has taken a pay cut, but we have not had to lay any of our employees off or terminate any employment within our department, and taking care of our staff, taking care of our student athletes. That's what keeps me up tonight as an athletic director, and being able to maintain what we're doing.
Hutch?
Yeah, Hunter, back to football, considering all the obstacles that came with the pandemic, were you at all surprised at how quickly and how much Coach Pittman got the program turned around this year?
Absolutely. He exceeded my expectations. When you think about bringing a new staff on board, and then roughly 65 to 70 days after that, you go into kind of a COVID situation like we did. You cancel spring practice, you're meeting virtually, you're trying to install offenses and defenses virtually during the spring. You have limited workout availability during the months of June and early part of July. He and his staff overcame a number of obstacles to really create a level of confidence amongst our student athletes that they were going to be put in positions to have success. And then you put on top of that an SEC only schedule where, I still think it was one of the toughest schedules in the history of college football. We played 4 teams that were in New Year's 6 bowl games, and they played obviously the eventual national champion in Alabama, and to win 3 of those games, and we haven't won 3 SEC games in the last 3 years. I think that was a significant accomplishment and step in the right direction for our program.
And then along those same lines, when you hired a guy with no head coaching experience, the hire was kind of met with criticism and skepticism nationally. How did you enjoy personally the success they had? And I mean, did you feel almost kind of vindicated with how well they did?
Well, I try not to pay attention to a lot of the scrutiny that goes on in hiring coaches. I felt like Sam Pittman was a great fit for what we needed at the University of Arkansas, with his ability to build offensive and defensive lines, his ability to recruit, and just his personality and how it fit within our state. And so Hutch, I felt like he was going to be successful. To say that he was going to be successful out of the gate like he was, with all the obstacles we overcame, I would be lying to you if I said that. But I thought Sam Pittman, I wouldn't have hired him if I didn't think he's the right person for the job.
Hunter, this is a state of the baseball program question. The 4,000 in attendance, is there a temptation to maybe try to bump that up? And can you adjust it higher as the summer goes along? And secondly, Dave's just taking on everybody in the state he can, and I want to get your thoughts on that part of it too.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Tom. I mean, part of the method to the madness that our external team developed and how we're selling tickets to baseball was to sell them on a single game basis. That'll make it much easier to increase that capacity in various areas of the stadium as the spring season goes on, if we have that ability through the Arkansas Department of Health, and as COVID hopefully becomes a thing that's in our rearview mirror. So we hope that 4,218 roughly, that will grow over the course of the spring. And that's why we set up the single game ticket purchasing the way we have. Dave, in his schedule, I mean, he's always been one to take on all comers, but it just makes sense. And it's why we went down this path of playing state schools. It's easy for these schools to bus over and play midweek baseball games. It makes sense for us to play those in-state schools, especially in a sport like baseball and softball. And, Dave's done a great job of scheduling. I think he's got all of them on the schedule now.
Yeah. And the senior AD position you're hiring, when do you expect that to happen? And in a nutshell, what will that person do?
Yeah, so that position actually closes, I think, tomorrow. And then we hope to have that person in place by the early part of March to late March. And really, that's helping our student athletes from the time they arrive on campus, one, build their brand. I mean, all of our student athletes have a brand, and that's really what name, image, and likeness is. It's about the student athlete's personal brand, and we want to teach them how to build their brand, through social media and the do's and don'ts about social media. We want to give them the appropriate legal advice as they try to go out into this name, image, and likeness. We want to make sure they're compliant with what's going on. So really, this is kind of a blank canvas for us, but my vision for this position is that they really help our student athletes from their freshman year to their senior year build a solid brand that is a benefit to student athletes throughout their life. And if it's a financial benefit for them while they're here at the University of Arkansas, so be it.
Seth?
Yeah, Hunter, Mike Neighbors and women's basketball team has made sure that, he wants to lead the country in games played. He said that. What went into replacing a game in basically a week and getting such a great opponent?
Yeah, so Mike Neighbors, he sent a text to me when Vanderbilt dropped out of the season and wanted to know if he could replace Vanderbilt with Connecticut. Quite honestly, I thought he was kidding. When he sent me that text, he was dead serious. He said, I've talked to our team. They want to play the best. They enjoyed competing against Baylor. They enjoyed competing against South Carolina and the rigors of the SEC schedule. Connecticut had lost, I think, 4 or 5 games early in the season. They were looking for games, and it just it made a great deal of sense to try to get them here.
Jordan?
Hey, Hunter, when you talk
Hey,
about
Jordan.
the low positivity rate that you all have had, is there anything that you can attribute to maybe that success when you see so many other programs around the country having to cancel things and having all of these positive cases? Is there anything in particular you're noticing?
Well, I think our coaches and our athletic trainers, our strength and conditioning coaches, our nutritionists that are around our student athletes on a regular basis are continuing to do a great job reinforcing those messages to our student athletes about the appropriate behavior, not only when they're in our facilities, which is really easy for us to manage, but it's when they go back to their apartments and they're going out to eat. And I think our student athletes, they want to compete in their sports. They invest a great deal of time in training and want to play their sports. And as you look at our spring sports that had their seasons cut short last year, and we're heading into that spring season, they're all taking it extremely seriously. Now we have 18 of 19 of our sports programs that will compete this spring, and our football program is the 19th, and they'll have a spring football season. So just about every one of our student athletes is competing this spring. And I think they do see, Jordan, what's happening around the country, and they don't want to be one of those schools that cancels games or postpones games.
Matt?
Hey, Hunter, I wanted to go back to something you said earlier about the baseball facility. You said part would be ready during the season and part after the season. I wonder if you could give a little bit more detail what you're talking about and when it's going to be fully operational.
Yeah, so Matt, it was our goal to have the 14 loge boxes. That's that outdoor seating area that's adjacent to what right now is the visiting team bullpen. So it's 14 loge boxes. There's 2 5-person loge boxes and 12 4-person loge boxes. Those will be completed here in the next couple of weeks, and those will be open for opening day of the baseball season. The remainder of the facility will not be completed until sometime mid to late April. And so that's what I mean by some of that facility will be open.
Do you think that means that the team will be using it before the end of the season, or do you think it'll be after the season if they get in there?
I haven't had that conversation with Coach Van Horn. Obviously, we're not going to switch dugouts or switch bullpens during the middle of the season. Whether they go out to that facility in May and use the weight room, training room, things of that nature, that's still yet to be determined. But, trying to move from our current clubhouse out there during the middle of the season may be problematic. But, I'll leave that up to Coach Van Horn if he wants to make that decision to move during the season.
Hutch?
Hunter, I'm not sure if this is something you'll be able to answer, but I know in Coach Pittman's contract, it has some automatic raises built in if he reaches certain thresholds of wins. They went 3-7, but I think in a normal year, everyone thinks they probably would have won 6 games with a non-conference schedule. Is that something that y'all have discussed and has been in consideration this offseason?
It has Coach Pittman and I have discussed some parameters within his current contract on multiple times, and we're working through some of those. And I think you'll see something here in the next or so related to that, Hutch.
Bob?
Yeah, Hunter, you cut out there. You said you'd see something in the next, and then
Probably in the next month.
okay. That wasn't my original question, but I wanted to clarify that. Hey, getting back to finances, I'm sure Texas and LSU, whoever else was trying to get Barry, they threw a lot of money at him. With the financial challenges you guys are facing, how hard was it to come up with the added money to retain Barry? And then it's great to get these seniors back, but that's extra money too. I mean, you guys could have, pushing 95 players on scholarship. How challenging is that?
Yeah, Bob, when I let Coach Morris go, I anticipated that we were going to have some financial hardships prior to COVID just because we were going to have to pay Coach Morris out. That was no longer the foundation responsibility. We had Coach Chavis and a couple other coaches in retainer. And I went out and met with several of our donors and created through our Razorback Foundation what I called the Football Enhancement Fund that would provide Coach Pittman the opportunity to spend those resources to hire and retain the best coaches, to buy any type of equipment he needed for the Smith Center, and to recruit where that didn't have to come from an operational budget. And then when COVID hit, it was more than necessary. And so the raises that were given to Coach Odom and any of his other staff members, they're coming right now, for at least for the next 2 years, from that Football Enhancement Fund, not coming from any operational dollars.
And having the extra players back, that's great for Sam, but it's more money you got to spend. How big a challenge is that?
And that's just not for football. I mean, that's for all of our sports. That's happened now for all of our fall sports and all of our winter sports. And so that's a challenge that we're going to have to address with all of our sports moving forward.
It's got one more. The open letter, were you originally planning to send that to season ticket holders or post it on Twitter? And then what else? Why did you decide not to post it?
Yes and yes. And, I think I decided not to post it just because I wrote it, sat on it for a day or two, as some mentors have told me. When you write some things in haste, whether it's an email, a text message, or things, you need to sit on it for 24 to 48 hours. And just decided that it had kind of served its purpose for me, and it had been very therapeutic for me to write that and read it multiple times.
Okay, thanks.
All right, last call. All right, Trey Shapp, wrap us up.
Hey, Hunter, right before Christmas, you gifted Kane and Sandy with lifetime season tickets to any athletic event at the University of Arkansas. What went into that decision?
Well, I was not aware of the fact that Kane and his mom kind of called multiple people to try to scrounge up a couple of tickets so that they could attend games. And I thought they were just season ticket holders and had the wherewithal to do that, and was amazed that they could. And then when I found out that they didn't have that wherewithal, and that they were having to call, friends and people within our department to try to find tickets to all the events they wanted to come to, I just thought it was a natural thing to do to one of our super fans who has obviously not had the easiest life, to just give him the opportunity as a Christmas present to attend Razorback events with his mom for life. And so had all of our coaches sign that commemorative ticket for Kanan. And I think you saw the video with him crying, his mom crying, and what that really meant to them. And not only what it meant to them, I was overwhelmed by what it meant to our fan base. Because I don't know that anybody that's a true Razorback fan that doesn't know who Kanan Sandy is.
All right, that'll wrap us up. Hunter, appreciate the time.
All right, thank you. You guys have a great week and weekend. Go Hogs.